We start from that great movement by gold, spot gold. It smashed through $4,000 an ounce. That's the first time, as concerns over the U.S. economy and a government shutdown added fresh momentum to scorching rally. It's a milestone for bullion, which traded below 2,000 just 2 years ago, with the returns that now outstrips those for equities this century. Gold has jumped more than 50% this year in the face of uncertainties over global trade and the Federal Reserve's independence, as well as U.S. fiscal stability. And from there, we go to the European Union, which has announced plans to hike tariffs on imported steel in a move that the UK's steel industry has said could be perhaps the biggest crisis it has ever faced. The Commission has set out plans to cut the amount of steel that can be imported into the bloc by half, beyond which the new 50% tariffs will apply. The EU is the UK's most important export destination for steel, worth nearly €3 billion and representing 78% of steel products made in the UK for overseas market. The Commission has come under pressure from some member states and their steel industries, which have been struggling to compete with cheap imports from countries like China and Turkey. The EU is proposing to reduce tariff-free quotas for imports to 18.3 million tons a year. This is about 47% reduction from the 2024 levels. The new measures will come into force early next year, but will first need to be approved by a majority of the EU member states and European Parliament. And still in Europe, but now their biggest economy, Germany, we see the German industrial output fell much more than expected in August because of a sharp decrease in production in the car industry. Industrial production fell by 4.3% compared with the previous month. This is according to the Federal Statistics Office. The less volatile 3-month on 3-month comparison showed that production was 1.3% lower in the period from June 2025 to August 2025 than in the previous 3 months. Production in Germany's largest industrial branch, the automotive industry, fell by 18.5% on the previous month due to the combination of annual plant closures for holidays and production changeovers. This is according to the Statistics Office. In the UK, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer begins a 2-day visit to India, as started today, joined by over 100 leaders from the business, culture, and university sectors. It's an effort to promote a recently signed trade deal. Britain and India signed a free trade agreement in July during a visit by Indian Prime Minister, sealing a deal to cut tariffs on goods from textiles to whiskey and cars and allow more market access for businesses. Talks on the trade pact were concluded in May after 3 years of stop-start negotiations, with both sides hastening efforts to clinch a deal in the shadow of tariff turmoil unleashed by U.S. President Donald Trump. The deal between the world's 5th and 6th largest economies aims to increase bilateral trade by further £25.5 billion by 2040. The industry has been lobbying the UK government to reduce U.S. tariffs after a deal between the countries did not cover whiskey. Talking about tariffs, businesses across the U.S. have been crying out for months about the damage inflicted by sweeping tariffs from President Donald Trump. He has imposed. Now, one group is poised to get relief, and those are the farmers. President Trump has said that his administration is developing plans to send billions of dollars in support to farmers, especially growers of soybeans who have been hurt as purchases from China, which is the world's biggest buyer of legume, have dried up this year. The plan is a reprise of the bailout that President Trump extended to farmers. It was hit by trade wars of his first term and reflects pressure that he's facing from a key part of his voter base over the consequences of his tariff policies. But plans have been frustrated and have frustrated many other kinds of businesses that have also been hurt, as the new taxes on imports raise costs for firms based in the U.S. and alienate long-time customers overseas. Still from the U.S., the Trump administration is warning federal workers for long in the government shutdown that they may not get back pay once the funding impasse ends, which some lawmakers are decrying as illegal. A memo prepared by the Office of Management and Budget says the 2019 law signed by President Donald Trump guaranteeing retroactive pay after a shutdown did not apply to employees who have been temporarily asked not to report to work. On Tuesday, Trump told reporters that back pay depends on who we're talking about and that some workers don't deserve to be taken care of. About 750,000 employees are currently foregoing their regular pay as the shutdown nears the end of its first week. And Tesla also has unveiled cheaper models of two of its most popular cars in the U.S. as it tries to boost sales on the heels of the expiration of a key U.S. tax. We'll see how that goes. We'll follow up the story much later here on Business Morning.